Good evening. You're tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Is there an urgency now to reconvene the Parliament? And one-shot consignor vaccines allocated for Kelantan interiors. That's coming up. Selangor Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Amiruddin Shahri said he will seek the consent of the Sultan of Selangor to reconvene the State Legislative Assembly in the shortest time possible. This comes following the decree from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong yesterday for Parliament to reconvene to discuss the emergency ordinance as well as government spending to combat COVID-19. In a statement, Amiruddin said he will start discussion with the Speaker of the Selangor State Assembly today, following which the result of the meeting will be presented to Sultan Sharafuddin Idris Shah for approval in order for the State Assembly to reconvene. Yesterday, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong said Parliament should reconvene as soon as possible to allow lawmakers to debate the emergency ordinance and the National Recovery Plan. Earlier today, the Prime Minister's office said the government has taken note of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong's statement yesterday and will take subsequent action to follow it up according to the Federal Constitution. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said he expects Parliament to reconvene by August or September, when daily COVID-19 cases are projected to drop to below 2,000 and social sectors are reopened in stages. The Conference of Rulers meeting yesterday with the Yang di-Pertuan Agong ended with a call to reconvene Parliament as soon as possible. With the number of cases still high, has the outcome of the meeting created an urgency for Malaysia to improve our handling of the pandemic? We speak to Lim Wei Jet, lawyer and co-founder of the Malaysian United Democratic Alliance, to share his thoughts on the matter.
And I think that as a reaction to the Council of Rulers statement, Minister in charge of Parliament, Lord Datuk Sri Taqiyuddin, seems to suggest that dengan segera probably means September or October. Speaker of Parliament, Dato' Azhar Harun, was also of the view that September, October reopening of Parliament was rational, which I don't think falls in line with the Council of Rulers' statement, because they clearly want a sense of urgency, and they clearly are of the view that a September, October opening is too late. So my view is that Parliament should be reopened immediately within the next 1 or 2 weeks.
Wejat believes that the high number of cases has no correlation to Parliament reconvening, urging for it to reopen as soon as possible.
I don't see why we need to hit X number of cases only Parliament can be opened, because today you have factories being open and certain stores being open, and they are essential services. So the question is, why is Parliament not an essential service that warrants reopening today or tomorrow? Why do we have to wait until it hits X number of cases? Why is it categorized in the same category as salon or stationery shops out there? It is an essential service. So I am not of the view that Parliament should be open only during the second or the third phase. It should be open today.
How crucial is the reopening of Parliament? Lawyer Lim Wei Jet talks about the importance of allowing debates that are crucial in the policy-making process to handle the pandemic effectively.
The simple fact is that when Parliament is open, you allow accountability, transparency, debates to happen, so executive policy can be improved and enhanced along the way. Malaysia is probably the only country in the world which has shut down the Parliament under the pretense of combating COVID-19. No other country has done that. New Zealand, Singapore, Taiwan have allowed their parliamentary proceedings to proceed, and they have handled the pandemic well. So to say that the legislature is some kind of obstacle to prevent an effective handling of pandemic is untrue. In fact, the opposite is true. A robust legislature contributes to better policy making in general. The second reason being, there is concerns and doubts on the legitimacy of whether the Prime Minister commands the confidence of the majority of Parliament, and that is probably the best avenue to test whether whether he has the confidence of the majority. If he does not, then he should resign and a new Prime Minister be elected. If he does, then he can proceed with his job.
It is only a matter of time when the COVID-19 pandemic becomes endemic, said Gallen Centre for Health and Social Policies, Azrul Muhammad Khalib. This means the virus is here to stay for a longer period of time than expected. Therefore, he said the best way forward is to prepare and protect the human population from severe or hospitalized infections.
I'm sorry to burst people's bubbles when we talk about life after this. There will be no life post-pandemic. And this is the reality of it. When we talk about endemic, it means that we will be living with this disease for a long time to come. So what we need to be able to do is to make sure that we are able to, first of all, accept that reality, that there's not going to be zero cases for a long time to come, if ever. And most importantly, the way for us to be able to protect ourselves, our families and communities, especially with now the emergence of new variants, is really vaccination. So we need to make sure that the vaccines that we have are able to also cover or protect us against those variants as well, on top of the earlier wild type original strains that came out early on. But also in the future, there might be variants that are coming up that require either a booster shot or perhaps new vaccines altogether. And that's going to be the mindset that we have to be thinking about, is basically vaccination.
On addressing supply issues, Azrul supported the idea opined by Minister in charge of the National COVID-19 Immunization Programme, Khairi Jamaluddin, in mixing vaccines to boost efficacy.
A study was recently published in the science journal Nature, which looked at vaccinating people with both the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines. And it found that not only was this safe to do so, but doing this so-called mix and match, produced a potent immune response against the COVID-19 coronavirus. So it is possible that by doing this mix and match, as was proposed by the minister, besides addressing a possible supply problem for either of the two vaccines, it could actually trigger stronger, more robust immune responses compared to having 2 doses of a single vaccine. So it would definitely be a good and science-based solution to addressing the supply issue that we are currently facing.
Meanwhile, the government will be supplying the Consigno vaccines to Kelantan in July to vaccinate residents living in the interior. National COVID-19 Immunization Programme Coordinating Minister Khairi Jamaluddin, however, said the total vaccine to be distributed will be announced after the shipments for the vaccine arrive next month. He added that the government anticipates that the vaccination of about 1.2 million residents in Kelantan will be completed by October. This is based on the state government's target of administering 30,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine a day next month. To date, 42% of Kelantanese have registered for the COVID-19 vaccination. Kelantan will also set up 5 vaccination centres, 1 each in Kota Baru, Bachok, Pasir Mas, Machang and Kuala Karai. We'll take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Over 350 doctors in Indonesia contracted COVID-19 despite being given the Sinovac vaccine, raising concerns over the efficacy of certain vaccines against more lethal variants of the virus. Most of the doctors were asymptomatic and self-isolating at home, but some were hospitalized with high fevers and low oxygen levels. Indonesian healthcare workers were among the first to be vaccinated when the inoculation drive started in January, with almost all receiving China's Sinovac vaccine. The pandemic has dealt a heavy toll on Indonesia's healthcare system. The country recorded some 53,000 deaths. 943 fatalities involved doctors and nurses. The Japanese government has to end the state of emergency covering Tokyo and 8 other prefectures on June 20th. Okinawa, however, will remain under these restrictions until mid-July. In place of the emergency, the government will implement so-called quasi-emergency measures in Tokyo and 6 other areas until July 11th. With just 5 weeks until the Olympic Games open, Tokyo is likely to maintain strict limits on the number of spectators allowed at large events. The current state of emergency allows only 5,000 people or 50% of venue capacity, whichever is smaller. On Wednesday, the government approved an upper limit of 10,000 spectators for areas not under any restrictions. Japan has barred foreign spectators at the Games and is due to decide soon whether to allow domestic spectators. Many authorities in various countries have come up with methods to incentivize people to get vaccinated against COVID-19. In Hong Kong, where there has been no major outbreak, there is lack of urgency among its people to get vaccinated. But many had a change of heart when one of the city's developers offered a lucky draw with a grand prize of a condominium. More than 450,000 people signed up on the first possible day for the chance to win a one-bedroom condominium worth $1.4 million. Proof of vaccination is required to claim the prize. Other private companies, anxious to have the economy return to normal as soon as possible and encouraged by the government, have also announced a slew of incentives for vaccinated residents, including the chance to win gold bars or a new Tesla. Hong Kong's vaccination program, which began in February, has been slower than expected amid widespread vaccine hesitancy due to multiple factors, including fears of side effects, a mistrust of the government, and a lack of concern from some residents. Hong Kong so far has managed to avoid widespread infections with fewer than 12,000 cases since the beginning of the pandemic. On to other developments in Hong Kong. 5 editors and executives at pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily were arrested today under the city's new national security law. Authorities say the 5 were arrested for collusion with a foreign country or external elements to endanger national security. Over 500 police officers were involved in the operation. Among the 5 arrested was Editor-in-Chief Ryan Law. It was the second time in less than a year that the newspaper's office has been raided, raising further concerns about the future of press freedom in Hong Kong. Apple Daily is known for its strong pro-democracy stance and often criticizes and condemns the Chinese and Hong Kong governments for tightening control over the city. The police already arrested Apple Daily founder Jimmy Lai and other executives last year on suspicion of national security law violations or fraud. Even with Parliament still shuttered, MPs can play a vital role in the success of the vaccination rollout. Tonight on Consider This, we speak to 3 MPs from Pahang about the challenges in getting their constituents vaccinated. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news update on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro Awani app. I'm Fahana Sheikh. We'll see you tomorrow.